Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call to order this joint Senate Committee on Finance and Assembly Committee on Ways and Means Subcommittee on Human Services. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assemblymember Brown May. Here. Assemblymember Dickman. Here. Assemblymember Hafen. Here. Assemblymember Hibbets. Here. Assemblymember Howdegee. Here. Assemblymember Monroe Moreno. Here. Assemblymember Yeager. Here. Senator Scheibel. Here. Senator Dondero Loop. Senator Stone. Here. Senator Titus. Here. Assemblymember Mosca. And Chair Nguyen.
Here. Please mark Senator Dondero Loop present when she arrives. I know I see her stuff there, and I know that she is presenting a bill in a committee in the Assembly, so hopefully she will be up here shortly. And with that, we will begin. Today we are doing some budget closings of the subcommittee on the Department of Health and Human Services, Aging and Disability Services Division. And Ms. Ellsworth, if you want to go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Kimber Ellsworth for the record, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. This morning we will be closing 12 budgets for the Department of Health and Human Services, Aging and Disability Services Division. The first budget is the administration budget, account 3151. The major closing issue in this budget is the recommendation to add one new unclassified medical epidemiologist position. The position is recommended to focus on opioid use and improving related health outcomes. The new position would assist in developing recommendations and targeted interventions to mitigate the impact of opioids on the aging population. This is a companion decision unit to E259 in the Department of Health and Human Services Fund for a Resilient Nevada budget account, which transfers the opioid settlement funds to support the position costs. That budget account was closed by the subcommittee on April 8th, and that decision was deferred to this closing. The decision for the subcommittee is on page 5. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of an unclassified medical epidemiologist position to address the impact of opioids on the aging population, funded with a transfer from the Fund for Resilient Nevada of $633,801,000 in opioid settlement funds?
Do we have any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Thank you so much, Chair. And knowing our economic impact that is going to happen for us, I do unfortunately not approve the the statement as read by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Scheibel. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Okay, Kimber Ellsworth for the record. There are 8 other closing items beginning on page 5, including a budget amendment on page 6 for one-time costs associated with the existing case management system. This would add $441,202 in FY26 in general fund appropriations. Fiscal staff recommends all other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor, including budget amendment A25705351 and other closing item 8 to add general fund appropriations of $441,202 in fiscal year 2026 for one-time costs associated with the agency's case management data system, and request authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Scheibel. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to our next budget, consumer health assistance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kimber Ellsworth for the record. On page 7 is budget account 3204, consumer health assistance. The major closing issue in this account is the establishment of new caseloads and associated positions. The governor recommends total funding of $916,830, including $412,567 in general fund appropriations over the biennium to establish caseloads and add associated positions for consumer health assistance program activities to address anticipated staffing needs. The table on page 9 summarizes the caseload projections. These were updated in March 2025. And as you can see in the table, the March projections are lower than the projections that were utilized in the governor's recommended budget. The original recommendation would add 5 positions with the lower caseload projections from March. On page 10, you can see the caseload calculations changed the additional positions to 3 new positions. And there was a budget amendment received on February 28th from the governor's finance office, which changes the recommended caseload position start date to January 2026 instead of October 2025. That affects 1 position in the updated caseload projections. And with that recommendation, all of the positions would start in January 2026. The table at the bottom of page 10 summarizes the costs associated with these adjustments. We've got the governor's recommendation, which had the 5 positions, and then the March 2025 caseload update, which reduces that to 3 positions. So there's a cost savings there. And then we have the budget amendment, which provides further cost savings for total adjusted costs of $465,448 over the biennium. And that's 49% change from what was in the governor's recommended budget. The decision for the committee is on page 10. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of $465,448, including $209,452 in general fund appropriations over the 2025 to 27 biennium to establish caseloads and staffing ratios and add associated staffing to support consumer health assistance program activities based on the March 2025 updated caseload projections and with budget amendment A253443204 to delay 1 position start date.
And just to be clear, this is a decrease in a savings of about 500,000 over the biennium. Is that correct?
Correct. The savings would be approximately 451,000.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Scheibel. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Let's go on to our next one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kimber Ellsworth for the record. On page 11, there are 6 other closing items. Fiscal staff recommends all other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Scheibel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to our next budget, the Autism Treatment Assistance Program, 3209.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kimber Ellsworth for the record. The major closing issue in this budget is the caseload growth and staffing adjustments on page 13 of your packet. The governor recommends total funding of $1.6 million, including $1.5 million in general fund appropriations over the 2025 to 27 biennium to fund projected caseload changes and associated staffing adjustments for the Autism Treatment Assistance Program. This recommendation would add 5 new positions with associated costs. The table on page 15 compares the projection that was used in the governor's recommended budget and the projection that was received in March 2025 based on updated caseload information. The table on page 16 compares the staffing adjustments based on those projections. And as you can see in the table, the new projections would add 6 additional positions on top of the governor's recommendation in Decision Unit M201. On page 16, there's also a description of a budget amendment that was received by the governor's finance office on February 28th, which changes the recommended caseload positions with start dates of October 2025 to start in January 2026 to reduce costs. The table on page 17 summarizes the staffing costs with these adjustments, with the caseload projection and the budget amendment. Due to the adjustments associated with the March 2025 caseload projections and considering the amendment, the updated service costs in M202 and the staffing adjustments in M201 as amended would result in net costs of $2.3 million, which is an increase of approximately $712,000 compared to the executive budget over the biennium. The decision for the subcommittee is on page 17. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of $2.3 million, including $2.1 million in general fund appropriations over the 2025 to 27 biennium to fund projected caseload changes for the Autism Treatment Assistance Program, including associated service costs and staffing adjustments based on the March 2025 updated caseload projections and with budget amendment A2537532009 to delay 3 position start dates?
Do you have any questions? I think in this case, I'd be inclined to entertain a motion that kind of aligns those service costs and staffing with the caseload as projected in the governor's recommended budget instead of with the March 2025 updated caseload projections. Do we have any other further questions about this? Seeing none, I'd entertain potentially that alternative motion.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll make that alternative motion. I move to recommend approval of $1.5 million, $1.4 million general fund appropriations over the 2025-27 biennium to fund projected caseload changes for the Autism Treatment Assistance Program, including associated service costs and staffing adjustments based on the caseload as projected in the governor's recommended budget and with budget amendment A2537532009 to delay 3 position start dates.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Scheibel. Do we have any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Kimber Ellsworth for the record. On page 17, there are 5 other closing items. Fiscal staff recommends all other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Scheibel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And we'll move on to our next budget, which is Home and Community-Based Services, 3266. Go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kimber Ellsworth for the record. The Home and Community-Based Services budget on page 19 includes community-based care services, which provides alternatives to nursing home or long-term care facility placement for individuals at risk of institutionalization. This budget is primarily funded with general fund appropriations and federal funds. There are 2 major closing issues in this budget. The first is on page 19 regarding caseload growth and staffing adjustments, including decision units M200, M201, M203, and M205. The governor recommends total funding of $8.4 million, including $6 million in general fund appropriations over the 2025 to 27 biennium to fund projected caseload changes and associated staffing adjustments for the community-based care programs, including 58 positions. The table on page 21 summarizes the positions in the governor's recommendation. And there was also a budget amendment received for this account that would change the position start dates from October and December 2025 to January 2026 as a cost savings measure. In March 2025, the agency provided updated caseload projections, and those are summarized on page 24 of the packet. As you can see at the bottom of the table, the March projections are notably higher than the projections that were utilized in the governor's recommended budget. I will note that there are no caseload decision units within the executive budget that fund service costs to reduce wait lists. And on page 25, there's a table that summarizes the projected caseload and the projected wait lists. And as you can see in the table, the wait list is projected to comprise more than 1/3 of the total projected demand for the community-based care programs by the end of the biennium. The agency has indicated that the demand for these services is projected to continue to increase. Based on the methodology used for the staffing, if the governor's recommendation would fund service costs for projected caseloads. However, it does not fund service costs for the wait lists. And if the caseload staffing is adjusted based on the projected funded caseload, and the wait lists are removed from consideration, then the FY 2026 caseload would decline below the current legislatively approved level. And based on the approved staffing ratios and the updated projections, if we exclude the wait list from the calculations, then the caseload adjustments would result in the elimination of several positions in fiscal year 2026 and decreased funding for service costs of $1.1 million in each fiscal year. Given the actual need for services, if we're looking at the caseload plus the wait list, which is projected to continue to grow over the upcoming biennium, and adjusting for the caseload as projected, excluding the wait lists, would result in significant cuts to existing caseload staff and service costs. The subcommittee may wish to consider not approving any adjustments associated with the caseload changes, including service costs or staffing adjustments in decision units M200, M201, M203, M205, and the budget amendment A2536432266, and instead recommend maintaining the caseload and associated staffing at the FY 2025 legislatively approved base budget amounts. The table on page 26 summarizes those caseload numbers. Additionally, the subcommittee may wish to recommend a letter of intent be issued to the division and the Office of Data Analytics, requiring the agencies to evaluate the community-based care program's caseload, including the methodology for projecting the caseload and the staffing needs. The decision for the committee is on page 27. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend not approving the governor's recommendation to fund projected caseload adjustments for the community-based care programs over the 2025 to 27 biennium, including adjustments to caseload service costs and staffing in decision units M200, M201, M203, M205, and budget amendment A2536432266, and instead recommend maintaining the FY 2025 legislatively approved base caseload and associated staffing levels? And does the subcommittee wish to also recommend issuing a letter of intent to the Aging and Disability Services Division and the Office of Analytics to evaluate the current community-based care program's caseload, including the methodology for projecting caseload and staffing needs, associated service costs, client wait times, and the approach to service delivery, and to report to the Interim Finance Committee during the 2025 to 26 interim on their findings and recommendations?
Do we have any questions? I see one from Senator Scheibel. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to clarify, if we follow the recommendation, would that mean that we would not have to lay anybody off in this budget account?
Correct, it would maintain existing funding.
Perfect. With that, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca and a second from Senator Dondero Loop. Do we have any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kimber Ellsworth for the record. The second major issue is on page 27. The governor recommends general fund appropriations of $849,420 over the 2025 to 27 biennium to continue existing service provider rates for the Community Options Program for the Elderly and the Personal Assistance Services programs. The actual costs of services are higher than the projected costs that funded the legislatively approved caseload for the current biennium for these programs, and the governor's recommendation would fund the difference in projected costs over the upcoming biennium and the base caseload costs for the programs. Based on costs that were utilized at the time of the budget build. As submitted, the governor's recommendation would support the projected costs of the fiscal year 2025 legislatively approved caseloads at an average monthly cost per individual of $1,153 for Community Options Program for the elderly and $1,947 for personal assistance services. However, in response to questions following the budget hearing, the agency indicated to better reflect actual service utilization that the average monthly cost per individual of $1,330 for the Community Options Program for the elderly and $2,435 for personal assistance services are more reasonable estimates for the upcoming biennium based on the most current billing data available. Fiscal staff calculates additional general fund appropriations of $802,375 would be needed in each year of the 2025 to 27 biennium to increase base service costs to fund the current legislatively approved caseloads at the average cost per individual per month of $1,330 for Community Options Program for the elderly and $2,435 for personal assistance services. The decision for the subcommittee is on page 29. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of general fund appropriations of $424,710 in each year of the 2025 to 27 biennium to fund projected base caseload service costs based on the average monthly cost per individual of $1,153 for Community Options Program for the elderly and $1,947 for personal assistance services, as recommended by the governor? And does the subcommittee wish to further recommend approval of additional general fund appropriations of $802,375 in each year of the 2025 to 27 biennium to increase the average monthly cost per individual from $1,153 to $1,330 for Community Options Program for the elderly and from $1,947 to $2,435 for personal assistance services based on the agency's most recent cost data?
Do we have any questions on this matter? Senator Scheibel?
So I am a little bit new to this committee, but I just want to clarify that this program is the one that really helps to ensure that people are able to stay in their homes and they're getting care there at home, as opposed to putting them into a facility, which would actually cost us a lot more money in the long run. Am I correct?
Go ahead.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. I tend to agree. I know that this looks like an increase, but I think this is a minimal increase when you think about the long-term costs of having people in long-term skilled nursing facilities or other options, whether it be in the hospital. So any other questions on this? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second?
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator John Darrell Loop. Welcome back. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Kimber Ellsworth, for the record, there are 10 other closing items on page 30 of the packet. Other closing item 9 is related to the taxi assistance program. Based on updated projections for taxi cab trips, the operating reserve balance in the taxi cab authority budget account is projected to be insufficient to transfer funding for the taxi assistance program in the upcoming biennium. That budget is scheduled to be closed by the General Government Joint Subcommittee on April 30th, 2025. Fiscal staff requests authority to make technical adjustments to align the taxi assistance program revenue and associated expenditures in this budget account with the revenue transfer out from the taxi cab authority budget account. On page 31, I just want to point out there's also recommended back language to continue the minimum wage requirements for personal care service workers. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 8 be closed as recommended by the governor. Other closing item 9 be closed with the noted technical adjustments to align the funding and associated costs for the taxi assistance program with the transfer out from the taxi cab authority budget account. And other closing item 10 be closed with the noted back language and request authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
So, second?
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Dondero Loop. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to our next budget, which is Adult Protective Services and Long-Term Care, 3282. Go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kimber Ellsworth for the record. On page 33 is the Adult Protective Services and Long-Term Care Ombudsman budget. There is one major closing issue in this account, that is caseload adjustments and additional staffing. The governor recommends total funding of $7.9 million, including $5.9 million in general fund appropriations over the 2025 to 27 biennium to adjust adult protective services and long-term care ombudsman program staffing based on projected caseload changes. The recommendation would add a total of 55 new positions for the two programs. During the budget hearing, the agency had indicated that both programs had seen an increase in the number of referrals. However, the vacancy rates were also discussed. Currently, the programs overall have approximately a 20% vacancy rate within this budget account. The vacancy rate for adult protective services, adult rights specialist positions is around 30%. And similar for the long-term care ombudsman program, they have a lower vacancy rate of approximately 7%. The agency provided updated caseload projections in March 2025, and those are summarized in the table on page 36. And those updated caseload projections would result in the addition of 67 positions compared to the 55 that were recommended in the governor's recommendation. On page 37 is a summary of the staffing for the Adult Protective Services program, and on page 38 is a summary of the staffing for the Long-Term Care Ombudsman program. There was also a budget amendment that was received by the governor's finance office to delay the start date of any new positions that would start in October and December 2025 to January 2026. The table on page 39 summarizes the recommendation for the staffing for both programs, comparing the governor's recommendation and the caseload adjustments. The difference from the governor's recommendation is approximately $1 million in general fund appropriations. And the decision for the subcommittee is on page 40. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of $8.8 million, including $6.9 million in general fund appropriations over the 2025 to 27 biennium to fund projected caseload changes for the Adult Protective Services and Long-Term Care Ombudsman program, including associated staffing adjustments for 67 new positions based on the March 2025 updated caseload projections and with budget amendments A25343382 and A25366382 to delay 40 position start dates.
Any questions on this? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Thank you, Chair. Given our economic environment as well as the vacancy rates, I motion to not approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca and a second from Senator Dondero Loop. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Thank you. Let's move on to the next item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kimber Ellsworth for the record. There are 5 other closing items on page 40. Fiscal staff recommends all other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Dondero Loop. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to the next closing item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kimber Ellsworth for the record. I will now begin presenting the budgets which the subcommittee has not previously reviewed for the Aging and Disability Services Division and for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations. I will pause following my presentation of each budget to allow for questions. When I have presented the last budget in this group and questions have been addressed, the chair may wish to ask for a single motion for closing consideration on all of the budgets for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations. The first staff closed budget is on page 41. This is the Commission for Persons Who Are Deaf, budget account 1006. The Nevada Commission for Persons Who Are Deaf, hard of hearing, or speech impaired provides services for and information and referrals. This budget account is funded with general fund appropriations and provides for the administrative expenses of the commission. The closing recommendations for this budget account are included on the summary page of the closing packet. And if there are no questions, I will
I will
move on.
just have you go through all of the staff closing budgets and we'll ask questions at the end. Go ahead.
The next budget is on page 43. This is the tobacco settlement program. This is funded with funds transferred from the Fund for a Healthy Nevada. Independent living grants enable older persons to remain at home and avoid institutional placement. There are 3 other closing items in this budget. The third is a budget amendment A253034140 received on March 17th, 2025, which would decrease revenue transferred from the Fund for a Healthy Nevada for independent living grants. The next budget account is on page 45. This is budget 3156, Senior RX and Disability RX. This budget account provides funding to assist eligible senior citizens and persons with disabilities to obtain prescription medications and other benefits. Funding is provided through transfers from a Fund for Healthy Nevada. There are 7 other closing items in this account, including other closing item 6, which is a budget amendment, A255253156, which was received on March 17 to decrease revenue transferred from the Fund for Healthy Nevada for prescription assistance funding. And other item 7 is a technical adjustment to remove the reserve, which was removed by an IFC work program during the interim. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to eliminate the reserves of $10,640 from the base budget, consistent with the FY25 work program that was approved by the IFC. The closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page of the packet. The next budget is on page 47. This is Communication Access Services 3206. Communication Access Services provides communication access to Nevadans who are deaf, hard of hearing, or speech impaired. This is funded by telephone users through a monthly surcharge on telephone lines in the state. The surcharge also funds Communication Access Services program staff. There are 7 other closing items. Closing recommendations for this budget account are included on the summary page in the closing packet. The next budget account is on page 49. This is the Focus and MFP budget 3271. The Facility Outreach and Community Integration Services program offers a voluntary service to provide Medicaid recipients who are at risk or reside in an institution with a choice to seek an alternative to institutional placement. The Money Follows the Person program provides eligible participants with the services, support, and assistance necessary to move back into the community. There are 5 other closing items in this budget. Closing recommendations for this budget account are included on the summary page of the closing packet. The next budget is on page 51. This is budget account 3278, Planning, Advocacy, and Community Grants. This unit offers programs and supportive services to older adults, people with disabilities, and their caregivers, including nutrition and home-delivered meals, assistive technology, transportation, preventive health, social services, and family caregiver support. There are 9 other closing items, beginning on page 51. For other closing item 8, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to add funding for projected expenditures in the upcoming biennium to complete the ARPA projects in this budget. And other closing item 9 is a budget amendment A255313278, which recommends to decrease a transfer from the Fund for Healthy Nevadas, which would support contract expenditures for Nevada 211. So it would decrease funding for that program. The closing recommendations for this budget account are included on the summary page in the closing packet. The last budget is on page 53. This is the State Independent Living Council Budget 3283. The Nevada Statewide Independent Living Council provides advocacy and support for independent living services and options designed to empower Nevadans with disabilities to live independently in the community. There are 6 other closing items, and closing recommendations for this budget account are included on the summary page, which is on page 55 of your packet. As previously noted, fiscal staff is responsible for developing the closing recommendations for the following budget accounts. To assist with the closing, we have identified the budget accounts that are recommended to be closed as recommended by the governor, along with the identified technical adjustments and budget amendments that are recommended. Fiscal staff recommends that the following budget accounts be closed as recommended by the governor with the noted technical adjustments and budget amendments, and requests authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary. Budget account 101-1006, DHS ADSD Commission for Persons Who Are Deaf. Budget account 2623140, DHS ADSD Tobacco Settlement Program, including budget amendment A255303-140 in other closing item 3 to decrease revenue from the Fund for a Healthy Nevada. Budget account 2623156, DHS ADSD Senior RX and Disability RX, including budget amendment A255253-156 and other closing item 6 to decrease revenue from the Fund for a Healthy Nevada, and the technical adjustment in other closing item 7 to eliminate reserves from the base budget. Budget account 1013206, DHS ADSD Communication Access Services, including the technical adjustment and other closing item 7 to fund the new position in Decision Unit E300 with 100% reserves. Budget account 1013271, DHS ADSD Focus and MFP. Budget account 1013278, DHS ADSD Planning, Advocacy, and Community Grants, including the technical adjustment and other closing item 8 to add authority for ARPA projects in Decision Unit E499, and budget amendment A255313278 and other closing item 9 to decrease revenue from the Fund for a Healthy Nevada, and budget account 1013283, DHS ADSD State Independent Living Council.
Wow, that was a lot. Do we have any questions on any of those 7 budgets? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Thank you so much. I motion to approve as stated by staff.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblymember Mosca, a second from Senator Don Loop. Do we have any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to the very end in record time. And so at this time, I will close the hearing on these budget closings, and I will open up to our next agenda item, which is public comment. I'd ask people to come up to the table, either in Carson City here or in Las Vegas. I don't see anyone in Carson City coming up to the table. I don't see anyone in Las Vegas coming up to the table. If we could go to the phone lines to see if there's anyone to testify in public comment.
Thank you. If you would like to provide public comment today, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Madam Chairs, members of the subcommittee. Stephen Cohen, for the record, Stephen with a V. Cohen, as in the former Assemblywoman. Yes, even in retirement, that is still a thing. To address the ATAC budget, Friday morning or not, I'm trying not to choke out of fear. These are critical services that the community needs. And I would hope that staff could work with the community to provide a middle ground. Thank you, I yield.
Thank you. There are no other callers to provide public comment at this time.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and thank you for those that participated via phone and public comment. With that, I will close public comment, and I will adjourn this meeting.